So we're here today with Joshua Jensen-Nagle, a prominent Canadian photographer, at his current exhibition, and it's a really great opportunity to sort of look at the last decade of his career, a number of different series, iconic images, and I feel really privileged today for us to be here to listen to Josh talk about his practice, his approach to his work, and to share some of the experiences that he's had. So without further ado, I turn the floor to you.
Okay. So this is a collection of work from the past decade. I've never done something like this before, and it's really interesting to see the different series come together and form an exhibition. I started my photography career when I was about 15 years old. I had no idea I was going to pursue it as a career, but that is what one of my biggest driving forces behind it was. It was going to my grandfather's beach house on the Jersey Shore and photographing beaches. And that has been an ongoing theme in my work for now nearly 30 years. The pieces here are from Portugal, the Algarve, Sardinia, and the Algarve again. Now, the works from the Algarve, it's kind of an important place for me for a number of reasons. I was shooting in Greece, shooting for an exhibition, and nothing was working out. I was really frustrated, and I had to find someplace else to make this exhibition. So I was frantically looking on the computer, trying to find a flight somewhere, trying to find where to go, and Portugal ended up being it. I got down there, I spent about a week shooting every day, nonstop, and I got a great body of work. This is mid-2000s, I guess. I was shooting Polaroid at the time, and it changed kind of the way I shot. And I say that because the Algarve, all the beaches are down from these big cliffs. So it was the very first time I started shooting from a perspective from above, and led me to shoot from helicopters. It took a while for that to happen, but the idea was there, and it finally came about, I guess, 10 years ago or so, where I really started digging into it. Now, this is from a helicopter. This is from a cliff. Shooting from a helicopter can be very tricky. It is a different way of working when you're shooting from the ground, obviously. When you're up in the air, you're dealing with a lot of challenges. You're dealing with wind, you're dealing with trying to communicate with the pilot, what height to be at, if there's regulations, how to maneuver the helicopter. Depending on the helicopter you're working with, it has different capabilities and whatnot. And you come apart all sorts of challenges when doing it. Working in Sardinia, this image was shot in August 2 years ago, and we drove to the location to pick up the helicopter. Beautiful sunny day. The shoot went great, and within about 20 minutes after landing, it just torrential downpour. Like, absolutely, we had to pull the car over, stay on the side of the road for 45 minutes. But that's like how quick things can change, or how you fly halfway across the world to go to a place. You have one hour to shoot. The helicopter was booked for the rest of the week. So if that storm came in a half hour earlier, the whole shoot would have been a bust. So there's a lot of aspects to it that can be challenging and tricky and out of your control. You really have to kind of just submit to what you have available, as far as the weather, as far as the helicopter company, as far as the pilot. You can get really good pilots, you can get really bad pilots. You never talk to the pilot until about 10 minutes before the flight. And they're usually kind of grumpy and don't really know what they're doing. And then as soon as you get in the air, they're having fun, because 90% of the time, they're just transporting people. So this is a bit more exciting for them, to go up and to explore and to do maneuvers they don't maneuver. And then if you have a younger pilot that's not that confident, they're drenched in sweat when you get down because they're just like, nervous. And then you realize, oh boy, okay. So, it's exciting. It's also nerve-wracking. I don't really love to fly, to be honest with you. But I have gotten better at it. And the door's off. I'm harnessed in, hanging out. So yeah, it's nerve-wracking. But as soon as I get the camera up and looking through the lens and shooting, it kind of all my anxiety goes away. And then you get back in and you realize that you're hanging out of a helicopter. I try to always get in the afternoon. This flight happened a little bit later. You can see the shadows are a little bit darker. I typically try to go a little bit earlier because of that, but it actually worked out really nice for this piece. And the reason we had to go later is, again, the circumstances of shooting. We arrived in Portugal, we're down there. The helicopters I had booked had all gone up north to fight wildfires, and they had to bring a helicopter from Lisbon down. So everything got pushed back and rearranged. Luckily, I was able to go up and do it, though. It almost didn't happen. But yeah, it was an interesting shoot. So let's walk around here. I'll show you some other pieces. So this is from Australia. This is actually the very first aerial shoot I did. It was in Sydney. It was kind of a bold move to do your very first shoot flying down to Australia. I probably should have tested it out on something beforehand, but it worked out great. I was really happy with the body of work. And, a lot of the early Sydney stuff was a bit, the abstraction of it. And then obviously it becomes very clear it's a beach. I was so happy with that body of work. It was something different. And it gained traction really quickly. The whole aerial beach works really took off from there. If we go over to, this is Majorca. This was my last shoot I did. And Majorca was really, really, really interesting place to photograph. Again, the abstraction of the sea and the colors. It's that part of the world. The water is just so intense. It's unlike anywhere else. It really just is incredible, especially from the air. When you're looking at it from the ground, it looks different. But once you're up and the light is going down, it becomes, a lot of people think I manipulate the photographs, but I don't. I do use a polarizing filter, so it makes saturation a little bit, but it's more for the reflection. If I didn't have it, you just get glare off the water. I don't shoot that much. And that kind of stems from my days working with Polaroid, because I had a finite amount of film. So I would shoot a Polaroid, look at it, and say, I got it. 2.25? No, actually, SX70. So I started out using the old SX70. It was actually my grandfather's. He gave it to me. And I don't know if you guys remember. So pop-up one, you control exposure and focus on it. But so I was, and there was very little film. I could only travel with so much film, so I was very careful about what I shot and how I shot. And that just kind of stemmed into, working now. I'm not overly, I'll take a few, I'll wait for people. I'll more sit at a spot, wait for moments, and then photograph. The moments of the waves, thing like, not in this piece particularly, there's no waves, but and sometimes when you're in the air, you tend to go back. But this was shot in Sicily. Italy and Portugal are two of my favorite places to shoot. They're just, the water is beautiful. It's such an interesting place to explore. And that's another thing about photography for me. It's really about exploring, finding places. You can do all the research you want, but once you get there, you don't know what you're going to find. It's part of the excitement of it. And this beach, actually, I had no idea it was there. We were driving from somewhere else, and I just looked out to the right and pulled over, went down, climbed up this cliff, And yeah, sat there for a while and made this. Yeah, so moving on from the beaches, kind of go and talk about the Dreams and Journeys series a little bit. So this is kind of an extension. After I was shooting beaches for a while, I was thinking, what else can I shoot? What else can I explore? I was working in Europe a lot, and I would see, all these people on vacation, and sort of, it was the same idea as the, dealing with nostalgia and memory, and, this idea of that, the moment you left behind. I loved exploring these architectural marvels and, photographing these people. I actually went to Bordeaux to shoot this fountain because I wanted to get the reflections of it, but you can't tell, but there's 2 rows of stairs down from where I am. So to get this shot, actually I had a 14-foot tripod set up, and it became almost eye level. But I do use that tripod often in the architectural work and sometimes in the beach work. Elevation is always great with images, helicopter, cliff, a large tripod, getting a different perspective. Sometimes the police ask questions, and it depends. I've used fixers before, so they're usually used in the film company, but they will organize permits for you depending on where you are. In Italy, I stopped using them because I hired a fixer, and right before we went out, he was like, I need $100 in euros and 20s. And I was like, okay. And as the police came up, he was doling out the 20s to the police instead of, so there was no permits, but so. Venice, I've shot Venice a few times, from this perspective actually, and I went back to shoot it again. I shot it in the early 2000s, and then just over 10 years later, with different equipment, a different style, a different way, more of a vast view of it. It's a really interesting place. It's a really frustrating place too. The crowds. Yeah. I mean, I love having people around, but sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Doing this body of work, what was one of the most challenging places to shoot?
Well, they all have their own challenges. I mean, to get this image was that was a challenge. I had wanted to shoot the Spanish Steps. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. My large tripod wasn't working. I think just because the elevation of it, I had to get higher. So I saw this balcony, and it was a balcony. It was Prada store on the corner there. So I went up there, and I asked them, and they were kind of like, yeah, I don't see why not, but we need permission from the head office. Like, we have to call Milan. And I was planning on going to Tropea the next day. Didn't hear back from them. Ended up going down to Tropea by train and shooting there. And then we get an email. You can shoot from the balcony. You're welcome to come back. So I did my work in Tropea. We left a day early, went to the train tracks to get on the train. We spent 10 hours on the train tracks because there was flooding. They were having flash floods. Oh, wow. So the trains were coming and they couldn't get through tunnels. So hour after hour, delayed. 10 hours on a train track is not that exciting. So we get back. I probably arrived around midnight. And then the next day I was able to make this, and it was worth it. But yeah, it's interesting. There's so many different challenges and so many different things that can happen when you're doing work. It's out of your control. I get asked that a lot, actually. No, I don't. And the main reason is a drone is actually more difficult to work with than a helicopter. The drone I would need to put my camera on, the wingspan would be about like this. So traveling with that is complicated in its own right. Using it, you only get about 15 minutes of flight time before the batteries go. So you could maybe bring a few sets of batteries, but you're still, have so much time. And you're looking through a video screen. So when you're up in the air, I really like to be able to see the subject. And back to my liking to explore, I have the places lined up that I want to go. But when you're in a helicopter, you can tell the pilot, let's go check this out. Let's I did my list of what I wanted to, and you never know what you're going to find. But when you had a drone, you're kind of just set up. You're going to set up here, go up, do that, and you can't really explore with it the same way. The work's back here, moving on to the winter scenes. Again, just kind of an evolution from the beaches, exploring people, all these little colors on this big mountain. The mountain shots can be tricky just because of the pure vastness of it. One of my first shoots I did was in Wengen, Switzerland, and I would go up the gondola and I would snowboard around and try to find different things and unstrap and hike up and try to find different points. But these mountain ranges are so vast. You can only get so much done in a day. By the time you get up one spot, and the weather again, another challenge. Like if the clouds roll in and it gets, you can't see anything. By the time you get down and try to get to another spot, the day's almost gone. But when it does work out, it's really exciting. This actually was just from the lodge at the peak. So it was on the balcony. And this image was from a helicopter. It's different from a lot of the other things I've shot. I'm usually taking a really large, wider perspective of things. And I just saw these 3 skiers and just thought it was kind of interesting to kind of have a close-up of them and a little whimsical. Post for me is just color balancing, contrast, and then test prints. So it's really just, I can usually get the image done in about 3 to 6 test prints after that, but it takes days. You get so far and you got to walk away from it. I can only look at a computer screen for so long. I don't like manipulating the images beyond what they were. I mean, maybe if there was some weird flare in a corner or something, a light flare or something, but yeah, they are what they are. Yeah, well, early on I was actually resining photographs on a wooden panel, and it felt more like a canvas. It felt more approachable. It felt more of like an object almost. I felt like you could just kind of walk up to it and really be a part of it. Now they're face mounted to plexiglass, back mounted to aluminum, and then aluminum subframe that goes around them. The way that I do these, it's a wet mount system. So we do it all in the studio. It's a unique process of using a silicone adhesive. And again, going back to sort of, I've always wanted my images to look painterly in a way. The paper I use is cotton rag, so it softens. The adhesive I use between the print and the plexi, it's really hard to describe without seeing a section of it and the print, but it allows light to come in a different way. It absorbs it differently. So it adds a softness and the whites become much milkier is a good way to describe it. For on the winter series, these are shot in Alberta. I was up shooting in Lake Louise, and I had no intention in going up in a helicopter or doing anything like that. But we got done what I was doing on the ski hill, and we had an extra day and I was getting antsy. So of course I look up a helicopter company, ask if they have availability the next day, and they did, down in Canmore. We had a great, beautiful day. The only thing is when I'm shooting in the air, I have a gyro stabilizer on the bottom of the camera. Otherwise it can, the helicopter, you're shaking. And when you're hanging out and everything, you need something to stabilize that camera. Otherwise it's very, very difficult to get an image. And I didn't have it for the shoot. So this was the first time I ever did it without it. I was really skeptical. I was a little like, do I do this? Do I not do this? And I went for it. But I think because I wasn't going down and it was more of a perspective straight ahead, I was able to stay in and kind of control the camera more. And so I was able to get these two. Shooting a 35mm camera, it's a very small negative and you couldn't blow them up like this. So like technology wasn't really there yet. You couldn't bring a bigger camera, maybe a medium format, again, limited. Couldn't bring a 4x5 camera, just not practical. So it was sort of until technology caught up to be able to do it properly. There's more control now over it than there was, depending on the camera system you use. I've been using this system for a long time, and same as back in the old days. If you used Kodak, it was warmer. If you used Fuji, it was cooler. So the cameras have that now too, and there's ways to change it. And then maybe I'll just close out with these images. So these are Polaroids. This is what I started my career out with. These were presented last year at Art Toronto. I had been shooting Polaroids over the years, just on my travels. I still love them. They're really unique, the softness of them, the color palette you get from them, the uncertainty of it. But that is the oldest way I have been working. That's how I started my career, and it's, led up to all the work I've created. And this is the newest way I've been working. So it's kind of nice that they're juxtapositioned. The color palette just happened to work out too. This is from my Sunsets and Fireworks series. So I actually shot this from my home in Lake Erie, the sunset, and then I would blow up these big prints in my outdoor studio and light fireworks in front of them. I was working with the idea of sunsets for a while, working the idea of fireworks for a while. And these ideas, they sit around. They can sit around for years. And they kind of like are back in your head, and what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then one day it just kind of clicked, and I was really happy with the body of work. It's really fun to work that way. Again, it's sort of like the Polaroid work. There's an uncertainty to it. You don't know what you're going to really get with the fireworks. It's a spontaneous thing, which is exciting. It's almost like that happy accident that a painter has with an abstract painter might, be like, oh, I do like that. It's a fun way of working. And I kind of feel like all my work kind of is like that, because you don't really know what you're going to achieve when you go out there. Really, the excitement of photography for me is exploring the uncertainty and just making it happen. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody.
Thank you.